Since the last time that I saw your pretty face. 1,000 lies have made me colder, and I don't think I can look at this the same. But all the miles that separate disappear now when I'm dreaming of your face. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, it's only you and me. Yeah. The miles just keep rolling as the people leave and wait to say hello. I've heard this life is overrated, but I hope that it gets better as we go. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, girl, it's only you and me. Everything I know, and anywhere I go, it gets hard, but it won't take away my love. And when the last one falls, and when it's all said and done, it gets hard, but it won't take away my love. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, girl, it's only you and me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, 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 oh.
Welcome to our MJA Inc. Investigations podcast. This is a MJA public service announcement titled Good Old Monday. My name is Mark, and I will be your host for tonight's podcast. Monday is our day where we send emails to respective people in law enforcement and attorney general offices, the Justice Department, the FBI, and to media outlets concerning several cases. It seems that politics of solving certain cases have gotten in the way, and getting justice for the victim and the victim's family is just a memory. Granted, you are going to have a few cases in your 96 case files that politics and money, for whatever reason, is the top factor beyond anything else. But when you have 30 plus cases out of 96, where some law enforcement agencies could care less if the case gets solved or not, then there is a big problem. So that's why every Monday we have to remind these people that there is enough evidence to move forward on the case. When I talk about evidence, I mean evidence that points directly to the only person who committed the crime. Case on point. In June 2006, MJA and a Kokomo, Indiana Tribune reporter broke the Shannon Sherrill case wide open that led to 1980s child serial killer David E. Penton as being the one who abducted 6-year-old Shannon Sherrill from Thorntown, Indiana on October 5, 1986. Direct evidence that leads to Penton. MJA found in the case files. Buried in the case files and forgotten were 2 witness statements taken on the day Shannon was abducted. These witnesses gave details about a van with out-of-state plates that kept driving in and out of the mobile home park. They got a good look at the driver, and a composite sketch was done. While law enforcement was stuck on a local and a red truck, the van and the composite sketch was never released to the public. All bolos concerned only the red truck. In 2006, it was learned that Penton did own such a van in 1986, registered in Texas. It was later learned that Penton has used this van on several abductions from 1983 to 1988, and on a lot of those cases, they had details of the van. The composite sketch was a great likeness to Penton in 1986. The most direct evidence against Penton, buried in the Sherrill case file, a report. When the news broke out on October 5, 1986, about Shannon being missing, there was a mistake made. By the time law enforcement caught the mistake made, 8 days had passed. So the investigators decided not to correct the mistake, and if they hold that info back, if by chance somebody corrected that mistake, then they would know they had the guilty party. After interviewing Penton's cellmate of 5 years, in general conversation with the ex-cellmate of Penton, we learned that Penton in 2000 bragged to his cellmate about the mistake the news made when Shannon went missing. So playing dumb, we asked the cellmate, did Penton ever say what that mistake was? The cellmate gave us the details of the mistake. That kind of info could only have come from one person, and that's the abductor. In June 2006, we handed over everything we had learned about Penton to Indiana State Police Detective Lieutenant Jeff Heck. Everything I'm telling you was backed up by the Indiana State Police Detective Lieutenant Jeff Heck during his investigation. In February 2007, Lieutenant Heck turned over his findings to the Boone County, Indiana prosecutor. Let me be clear about this. Lieutenant Heck wouldn't have gave the case file to the prosecutor unless it was a done deal, that all evidence leads to David E. Penton. Lieutenant Heck gained more info than we had after he interviewed 3 inmate informants in 2 different states that were once cellmates with Penton. So for 11 years, every Monday, emails are sent out. Everyone, including retired Lieutenant Heck, is wondering why the Boone County prosecutor hasn't filed charges against Penton. We say to the prosecutor, let a grand jury decide Penton's fate. The upside concerning this case is that there is a 95% chance of recovering the remains of Shannon Sherrill. Trust me, Penton knows where he dumped all his victims. In an interview, Penton told a Tyler, Texas newspaper reporter, Kenneth Dean, that if some state would give him the death sentence, that he would give up all locations of the victims that haven't been recovered so he could escape the death sentence. At this time, Penton is around 60 years old, so there should be an urgency for these multiple states to prosecute David E. Penton. Case on point. the death of Mark of Mja Sr. in 2013. In 2013, there was no death investigation or autopsy done concerning his death. During our investigation, we helped get Mr. Merritt's body exhumed in June 2016 from the police files. During their investigation in 2016, and with other info they had from 2013, all evidence leads back to the estranged wife and her parents giving false info to law enforcement. MJA has a police report. During this investigation in 2016, the chief of police of Leonville, Louisiana, made a statement that in 2013 he washed the death gun down before it was tested. After all, the chief was called to the scene by the estranged wife and her parents. The chief also waved off the parish district sheriff who arrived at the scene, the chief telling him that he would handle the case because he knew the family. Tox reports showed at the time of Mr. Merritt's death he was incapacitated, meaning someone else was involved in his death. Experts. MJA passed along autopsy video and reports of the autopsy to 5 other coroners who all found that Mr. Merritt was a victim of a homicide. Expert. We had a mechanical engineer look at the death room photos with Mr. Merritt still in the room. Her report read that the statements given by the estranged wife's parents was a lie. Mr. Merritt couldn't have been found in the position they claim they found him in, for the simple fact it defies the laws of gravity, meaning Mr. Merritt's body had been staged in the death room. The drug cocktail found in Mr. Merritt's system could only come from a pharmacy or a hospital. Mr. Merritt had no prescriptions in his name, but his estranged wife and her mother worked at the hospital. During the 2016 investigation, we learned that the estranged wife was nothing but an habitual liar. For years, she claimed to have set an ex-boyfriend on fire. In 2016, that man was interviewed, and it was proven that he got his burns from a grease fire at his place of employment. The estranged wife was given 2 polygraph tests. Both results were inconclusive. If you read the definition of inconclusive, not leading to a firm conclusion, not ending doubt or dispute, proving nothing, resolving nothing, leaving matters open. But yet law enforcement considers this case closed. Here we are for 2 years now sending emails to have the estranged wife charged. Another avenue is to have a death inquest or a grand jury to decide the fate of the case. Let's take a pause for the cause, but before we do, I would like to give a shout out to the Corbin Connection on YouTube. Mr. Corbin is a very funny man using his 3 alter egos. Once again, that's the Corbin Connection on YouTube. I have a quote for our listeners. Once you stop learning, you start dying. Albert Einstein. Back in a moment with our MJA public service announcement titled Good Old Monday.
Just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? think you're in control. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. And I think you're crazy. Just like me.
Welcome back to our MJA public service announcement titled Good Old Monday. Case on point. Jason Dale Bolton, 16 years old, accident or murder. On August 21st, 1991, Bolton's body was found in Franklin and Fayette County, Indiana, near Laurel, Indiana. 2006 headlines read, published on November 1st, 2006. Jason Dale Bolton, murdered August 21st, 1991. New investigation reopened. Murder cover-up in Franklin and Fayette County near Laurel, Indiana. Jason Dale Bolton's family and many others believe with all our hearts Jason was not only murdered, but that parts of his privates were cut off and his body was mutilated in other ways as well. This coroner's report shows this ever so clearly. His killers also ran him over as well. They were trying to make it look like an accident to the police. There was no comprehensive investigation by the police. Jason's family did not know that his private parts were cut off or other things was done to him. They only found these things out through the rights to the Freedom of Information Act just recently. MJA done a reenactment from witness statements, and our reenactment showed Mr. Bolton couldn't have been ran over by a vehicle as the witnesses had claimed. We had a mechanical engineer look at our findings before and after the reenactment, and our findings was correct. The evidence and injuries don't add up to Mr. Bolton laying in the road being ran over by a vehicle. Jason Dale Bolton was castrated, and his testicles were found almost 30 feet from his body along a fence line. Our findings stated that Jason's death was staged to look like an accident. Jason's injuries didn't support accidental death. The main suspect is the driver of the vehicle, and his stories have changed several times. There is evidence by witness statements that two people are to blame for Mr. Bolton's death. One suspect has threatened people to keep their mouths shut. These two suspects attacked Mr. Bolton because he had seen the two suspects commit a Class B felony and interrupted them. If nothing else, let a death inquest or a grand jury decide their fate. So for 11 years now, emails concerning this case has been sent out. Missing, 26-year-old white male. Joey Jonathan Haynes went missing on June 15, 1991 from Monroe, Michigan. There are only two people that had the means and the motives to have Mr. Haynes to disappear. When Mr. Haynes disappeared, these two suspects took Mr. Haynes' daughter and fled to California, where they was arrested for custodial interference. Their statements through the years have changed. Even statements they made to the victim's family has changed. Their circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. We say to the prosecutor to let a grand jury decide their fate. For 6 years now, every Monday, more emails are sent. Case on point. Missing Lynn Catherine Schultz, 18-year-old white female went missing on December 10, 1971 from Middlebury, Addison County, Vermont. Schultz was last seen at Middlebury College in Middlebury, Vermont on December 10, 1971. She headed across campus to take an exam when friends said she turned around and went back to retrieve a pencil from her dorm room. She didn't show up for the exam. Later, her friends went back to her room. All of her clothes was there, but she was gone. Her wallet was still in the room. The 18-year-old college student who disappeared in 1971 shopped at a health food store owned by Robert Durst. Durst owned All Good Things when Schultz went missing. Some 3 years ago, the case was jump-started, and police revealed that they had visited property in the area once owned by Durst. I believe it's safe to say, with the circumstances of Durst turning out to be a serial killer, that Durst abducted the 18-year-old Schultz. What are the odds that it could be anyone else but Durst? After our investigation, MJA started sending emails out concerning this case in 2015. I will say this, MJA always labeled this case that we were looking for a serial killer. We say to the prosecutor to let a grand jury decide Durst's fate. Case on point. Missing Brandy Nicole Wilson, 24-year-old white female, went missing on June 4th, 2002 from Colfax, Indiana, near the Frankfort, Indiana area. She was a mother of 2 sons. Mrs. Wilson was last seen at her home by her husband. Police didn't find anything in the home or on the property that suggested foul play. A small shed outside the back door. Police canines got a death odor hit on the shed, suggesting Mrs. Wilson was stored in the shed or evidence linked to her. Published on October 20th, 2007. Canine search used in the Brandy Nicole Wilson disappearance. Clinton County Sheriff's Detective Captain Rick Morgan gathered with Indiana State Police Detective Blaine Butler and the Clinton County Sheriff's Evidence Tech Steve Teagarden and 4 members of MJA Inc. out of an out-of-state private investigation firm at the sheriff's office to view maps and photographs of the county. Joining them was a 4-year-old bloodhound and his handler, a Wisconsin-based canine unit. After scoping out various parts of the county, the dog's work may result in some further investigation using other sources, Morgan said. We potentially have a few new avenues to look into. He declined to be more specific. MJA leaves out the emails to the local law enforcement because we are working together on this case and have been for years. MJA has been sending emails out about this case for 13 years now. All the evidence points to the husband. The husband was controlling and abusive and kept Mrs. Wilson away from her family. There is no way that the 24-year-old walked away without her husband knowing about it. In all sense of the word, the husband, when he was 17 years old, caused a death during a robbery. He was allowed to plead to a lesser charge for his testimony against his partner in crime. We say to the prosecutor, let the grand jury decide his fate. All of these cases can be solved. It just takes that one person to listen that has the power to move these cases forward so they can be solved. The evidence is there. It will just take some hard work to get the job done. These are just some of the cases I have been talking about. So MJA moves on until next Monday rolls around and another set of emails will be sent out until someone listens. I have a quote for our listeners. Life is the art of drawing without an eraser. No name given for the quote. That's the end of our MJA public service announcement titled Good Old Monday. Always remember, if you ever get bored, take a walk deep into the woods. You might be surprised what you might find. I want to thank our listeners. My name is Mark, and I was your host for tonight's podcast. And good night from Plattsburgh, New York.
First things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head. I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Oh, the way that things have been. Oh, second thing second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea. Oh, the master of my sea. I was broken from a young age, taking my soul into the masses, writing my poems for the few that look at me, took me, shaking me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the and a prayer to the ones up above. All the hate that your brothers turn your spirit to a dove. Oh, your spirit up above. Oh, I was choking in the crowd, living my brain up in the cloud, falling like ashes to the ground, hoping my feelings they would drown. But they never did, ever let everything flow, inhibited, limited, till it broke up and it rained down. It rained down.